This episode of The Tome Show is brought to you by listeners like you. Thank you to our patrons at patreon.com/The Tome Show. Welcome to The Tome, a D&D news, reviews, and interview show, and I'm your Tome host, Jeff Greiner.
And I'm Tracy Hurley, and in this episode, number 394, and part 17, we're trying not to be lured by the siren song of a harpy as we look at the 2024/25 version of the Monster Manual.
Joining us for this episode is the half-dragon of the Tome Show. Brandis Stoddard comes to us from Dimension 20, Worlds Beyond Number, and other things, as well as being a Tome Show regular. He has been so frequently imitated, he used to be a template to be applied to many people, but now we recognize how special he is and made him his own unique thing. That's what it was. Also on the team tonight is the Hellhound of the Tome Show from Gnome Stew, What Do I Know, JR, the podcast Thaka with Advantage, Jared Rascher, who works well in packs and breathes fire?
Sometimes. I like how you're just like narrowing it down to the first three monsters that we could possibly...
I can't go beyond that. It's got to be whatever the next 2 or 3 are, yeah.
My man likes a safe bet, all right?
I mean, really, as I get into the H's, where are my sweet spots for introducing the two of you? And it's like, well, I can maybe do something with Hill Giant. Homunculus would go okay, but those are so far down. There's no guarantee. Like we're almost certainly not going to get to Homunculus tonight.
I am grateful for not being described as a harpy, okay?
Jeff, I think we could get through the Z's tonight if we started on Z.
Oh, how brave.
So, we are talking about the latest Monster Manual, in case you haven't guessed yet. D&D 5e got an update in 2024, and we're doing a monster-by-monster dive into this book, and optimistically, we got to the H's! Yay!
We did go a little bit long last week's recording to get through the G's. Tracy missed out, but we did go a little long.
So, to get us started, it's disclosure time. Jarrett purchased this book, and the rest of us got review copies.
And we start with the Brandis Stoddard of D&D, the Half-Dragon. If the introduction is to be believed. And of note, to make that introduction make sense, it is true that in the 2014 version of the Monster Manual, the Half-Dragon was a template to be applied to other creatures in a way that almost never happens in 5th edition. Like, they got rid of almost all templates, but they kind of kept the mechanic around in a few places just in case, I think, so that they could come back to it and use it later. But in 2024, they've gone whole hog into, you know what, never mind, we're not doing templates. So here's just your Half-Dragon.
Yeah, as we talked about for the Dracolich, man, templates suffer really badly at the table. They just aren't going to be easy to apply on the fly.
No. I remember having a lot of fun with templates in 3rd edition, and I haven't really used them since.
For sure. No, I agree with that. They offered some really interesting ideas and possibilities. Honestly, half troll remains a pretty interesting idea, and so on. But yeah, you know,
for people who may not know, a template is taking a handful of stat modifications and applying it to other creatures. So in the case of a half-dragon, you could actually take a half-dragon and apply the half-dragon template to, I don't know, a gelatinous cube and have a half-dragon and half gelatinous cube for whatever reason. I don't know what that would look like. But, and back in 3rd edition, they did a lot of templates. You could half-troll to vampiric to whatever. And then in 4th edition, less so. And in 5th edition, it's like, well, the idea is still there. I feel like they put a few of them in 2014 just to like hey, this is some design space we might want to play with later, so let's like set a precedent for it. But by 2024, it seems like the concept of templates are done. We can just make new monsters if we want to do a vampiric dragon or whatever.
Right. They're sort of their very last flirtation with the idea is, I think, in Monsters of the Multiverse, is where you see, like, here's what you give something to make it a demonic cultist.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I mean, they sort of do that in here, but it's not a template. They're just showing you, here's like a base cultist, and now it's got an axe and shoots hellfire.
Right, but they retune each of them a little bit for CR faffing.
Right.
And so the stat block differences between 2014 and 2024 are pretty stark here, right? They've fully changed what's being represented.
Well, yeah. Oh, I mean, in fairness, because in 2014 they were representing this is how it might look if you applied the half dragon template to the veteran stat block, and so you have your half dragon veteran. And in this case, they went, well, we want to keep it within the same CR because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to map monsters from 2014 to 2024, but we're not trying to make a veteran that's a half dragon. So they're just leaning more into what does a half dragon that CR5 look like.
Right. And if you look at just the 2014 page, the core problem that they're facing is actually, there's a little bit more to it than just difficulty to use at the table. The additional problem is that they don't have a good way to tell you what the new CR is going to be. Right. Because the damage output is sort of something. There's different possibilities, but is it going to be 2 every time? Not likely. That's really quite unlikely. So, like, templates also really, really mess with their math, and that's a huge problem. So, what they've retained from 2014 to 2024 is foremost the CR. Right. That's the thing that can't change. And they also decide to keep the AC, but they come fairly close to doubling the hit points.
Mm-hmm. Well, 65 to 105.
Yeah, it's like a 50 hit point bump there.
Yeah.
40.
Is it 40?
40. 65 plus 5 is 105.
Yeah. Math is silly, but yeah.
And speed also increases by 10. The ability scores are sort of a whole fresh go, right? They're not trying to represent the same like baseline creature at all. Where 2014, as we're saying, is clearly a veteran with extra stuff.
It's interesting that the speed increases and they add this like mobility feature, like they have this bonus action leap that they didn't have before, and that's interesting to me because it does not seem inherent to what a half dragon is to have it like running around really fast and leaping.
Well, I mean, the leap is there to model wings that won't support full flight. That's what's going on.
Which is interesting because the artwork does not show them with wings.
I mean, maybe they're not supposed to have wings. Maybe they're supposed to have
they're launching themselves with their
serious hops. Serious hops.
They're just doing their Hulk locomotion there.
Yeah. So, fair point. And I don't know why they make some of those decisions. The one thing that is still sort of really adjustable about them in a no longer templatized but still kind of templatized way is their resistance that comes from their Draconic Origin feature.
Mm-hmm.
It also determines the damage flavor of their Dragon's Breath and of their claw attack. So they no longer use conventional weapons at all. They don't use conventional armor, where in 2014 they use plate, right? So
it's honestly
it's a
very
deep reconcepting.
It's a significant reconcepting, and we've seen half dragons appear in stories and adventures going back for multiple editions, and they've been fairly consistent in their depiction until now. The 2024 is a significant change.
I do think that if you look at the art in 2014, it does kind of call out an issue thematically as well, though, because you could say that was a Dragonborn, and I wouldn't say no.
Like, absolutely, it's Dragonborn. Yeah.
My understanding is that canonically, since the Tyranny of Dragons adventures, canonically, the difference between the art for a Dragonborn and a half dragon is the existence of a tail. Dragonborn don't have tails.
That is definitely not consistent throughout. Hey man, I'm just saying.
It was consistent in that first adventure when nothing else had come out.
Yes, it was absolutely consistent throughout the works of Kobold Press, and that's. But like this new half dragon, like the 2014 half dragon is indistinguishable from a Dragonborn. The new one is only barely distinguishable, basically for virtue of lack of wings, from a red Abishai.
Yeah.
Right.
There's also a third edition thing from Monsters of Faerun that I've never seen them convert, which were the Dragonkin, which were basically just these big hulking, dragon humanoids that the Cult of the Dragon apparently made on a very limited run because they never showed up in any other edition.
Well, other than being a metallic to chromatic sort of swap, these could also be Draconians, right? Like if you told me, oh, that's a red Draconian, yeah, oh, sure, bud, whatever. that could be canonical. You would know better than I would.
I mean,
but it is like they're a good line.
I don't think Draconians come in chromatic colors, though.
No, they do. They're just good aligned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're good aligned.
But the thing that I like a little bit less about the 2024 one is that it doesn't look like it's supposed to be a person.
No.
Yeah.
The 2014 one is definitely a person where talking is your first option. The 2024 one, that bro's going to eat your face. He's not here to talk.
Yeah. Well, he's going to eat your face, but he won't use his teeth to do damage because he does not have any damage for his bite, just for his claws.
No, he's going to gum you a bit afterward.
No, actually, you're right, and it kind of reminds me of, again, at the end of 3.5, all of the spawn of Tiamat that were here's a blue dragon, except it's kind of like a rhino, and here's a red dragon, except
I have that miniature.
Yeah.
I have the blue dragon rhino looking thing, yeah.
Yeah. And the story behind those were that they were basically mutant that hatched out of dragon eggs. They weren't partially humanoid, even when they had kind of a humanoid build to them.
So I guess like the lore paragraphs here also lean away a bit from this thing operates like a person and is an agent for engaging with mortal society, which is sort of the vibe in books before this one.
My recollection is that at least my first exposure to half dragons was second edition Council of Worms, and I believe that was pretty explicitly their role was to be sort of the diplomats, the liaisons between the dragons and the rest of the world.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess I am not wild about this retheming. The stat block in its own right is fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. No problem. I'm a little surprised they called it claw and not rend, if I'm honest.
That is,
Like-
I have that exact thing in my notes.
Yeah.
Because dragons don't get to claw anymore; they get to rend. But half dragons do get to claw.
As Jared's saying, those teeth are just for show.
Right. It would be even more ironic if half dragons had some form of like frightful presence too. Just
Maybe.
taking all kinds of things away from dragons and getting into the half dragons.
Anyway,
that's why dragons don't have it anymore. They put them all into the half dragon.
The half dragons took it.
Yeah, right. Anyway, that's all I have to say about half dragons.
So, I guess the only thing with the lore that I'm probably super glad about is just getting rid of that first sentence, just in the 2014 one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree that I'm just happy to move away from that.
Yeah.
It's funny because doing this research, I am finding a bunch of stuff in 2014 that makes me cringe that I completely forgot about that is in some of these entries. And even when I'm not thrilled with how they converted it for 2024, I'm still happy they got rid of some of the things that they had in there still.
Yeah.
I do like bonus action leaps though.
Oh, I just don't know what bonus action leap is doing conceptually on the big hulking brute thing. I mean, it's I can imagine the movie with the heroes driving through the wasteland in a semi trailer, and the big giant monster that happens to be a half dragon leaps on top of the trailer and tears it open and whatever, and that works thematically. It's just not half dragons as we've ever known them before.
I think you're actually right in using the word hulking, because I think this guy's next line is, "That's my secret cap. I'm always greedy."
Right.
I am curious now to look in Tyranny of Dragons and see where the half dragons are used, because I am betting they are in much more people-y roles than just hulking brute that attacks
one in
things.
Like that famous first chapter that confronts
Lundadrosa Cyanrath. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And fights him in a duel.
Right.
There's very much I'm a person that you would engage in a one-on-one duel with.
Yes.
Vibe. That's the whole presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, let's talk about harpies. The winged voice of doom. That's the tagline.
That's a pretty good tagline.
These did not change in here as much as the half dragons did.
That's true. Same AC, same hit points, same speed. We're staying pretty steady here. They lost their multi-attack, which is honestly quite surprising.
They don't get to carry a stick anymore.
Nope.
2014 had a club attack, but 2024 only claws.
Yeah, they're a singer at or with the club. Yep. And then Luring Song is a lot of text. Sorry, let me actually read all of this. Each humanoid
they didn't turn this down.
No. It's interesting that they specifically actively include giants in the things that can be lured. That's unusual.
Each humanoid and giant,
and that's actually, that's the same. It's just sort of an odd thing for them to do. I don't know why there are so few things that are affected. Like, why wouldn't a Fae be affected? What's that?
Yeah, I don't quite follow that logic, because usually it's either super narrow and it's just humanoids, or it's just anything.
Right.
But what is there something in harpy like mythology that makes giants make sense?
I remember Odysseus having a giant on this ship.
It'd be something in like Greek mythology, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Is there something?
I don't know.
Is there some offhand mention in some account of Greek mythology where harpies are mentioned with the Cyclops and all that? Something like that. But I don't know.
No, the only thing is, like I said, it springs to mind is from the Odyssey, and there was the only giants there were not associated with that scene.
That's a weird. But you're right. It's both 2014 and 2024. So far as I know, it's been every edition of D&D. This is the first time I've ever noticed that. So.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing in the lore that explains it. That's interesting.
No, it's just a real specific carve out.
Okay. Now I want to tell some sort of story about why harpies could affect giants and not so many other things.
Looking at the Wikipedia article, like, nope, that's not helping. Great.
It is worth noting in the 2024 version of the artwork is that we have what looks pretty clearly to be male harpies as well, which is a bit of a departure from traditional depiction of the harpies.
Yeah, they're very much trying never to have like gendered monsters in that, like, oh, this is a universally female monster. They don't ever want to do that.
Right.
Which does get weird in a couple of places, but I appreciate the effort at base.
And it works fine here, I think.
I think it works fine here. I don't have a problem here.
This is one of those places where I really like the 2014 lore going out the window because, one, the 2014 lore continues our trend of elven gods are really jerks, and I don't think any of them are good aligned. I don't think they've seen a good alignment because they curse anybody at the drop of a hat.
Including each other.
Yeah, that was like, really, seriously. But yeah, I do like that they kind of changed that. The other thing that I don't like is I mentioned this to Brandis before too. I get so tired in the 2014 when I reread these entries now of anything that has a self-preservation instinct is a coward, but anything that doesn't retreat is a zealot. It's like, no.
There's no in between.
It doesn't have to be those extremes.
Not super fair. I mean, the Divine Curse section of 2014 lore just resonates a lot with like Greek lore, where no one goes into Greek myths expecting the gods to be nice. What a mistake that would be, right?
And like, canonically, the elf gods live right next door to the Olympians.
Well,
sure,
there you go.
Let the harpies be created by Olympian gods. Why's that always got to be the elves? If they were Fae, I'd have it, maybe fine, make it the elf gods, but they're not Fae. All right. Anything else on harpies?
No, I'm set.
I think.
All right, then let's talk hellhounds, the unrelenting warden of the lower planes.
Bark, bark.
The only bad dogs.
Hellhounds are dogs from hell, and they breathe fire and work for bad guys. That's the gist.
And your players will still try to make one a pet, I promise.
I literally had...
Because it's a puppy.
My players tried to make one a pet in Descent into Avernus.
Yeah, there is no way you will not hear the... Yeah, there it is. That was my next line. Yep. But also works in Ghostbusters.
Does it?
Yeah, they get turned into hellhounds, dude. And then they still try to kind of make friends with them, sort of. It doesn't go well.
Right, it doesn't go well. So it didn't work.
But there's still... Well, no, there's still idiot PCs who try to befriend the very bad dog.
Yep. I let my idiot PCs successfully befriend the dog so long it was in the dog's interest, and as soon as the dog had an opportunity, it switched sides and joined one of the devils and attacked them.
Rude.
I mean, it's a hellhound.
Not a good dog.
It's friendship.
Is it? It's glowing from the inside. That's not.
Puppy.
If you ignore the fire
and the sharp teeth,
Lights her way.
and the big claws,
and the fact that like Venkman's girlfriend turned into one. No, wait, sorry. What?
So how have the Hellhounds changed?
Well, they have picked up some hit points.
A few, yeah. 13 hit points?
Not a ton.
Mm-hmm.
13 hit points. They have lost keen hearing and smell in the same way everything has. It does not change their perception score because they already had expertise in perception. So there's no room to change, right?
But
they just have the same thing.
But what's weird to me about that is for all of the other things that they aren't as worried about justifying. Like the rules say it can't be higher than this because if it's a skill, why is that where they draw the line? Because now it's just it doesn't really have exceptional senses compared to other things.
Right.
It's just a weird. Don't mind me. It's just a thing though.
It's a little bit like there was a big push towards more simulationist, making the math make sense for everything equally in 3rd edition, which really constrained 3rd edition design. And there's a risk of them constraining themselves in the same way.
Yeah. So their damage expectation has changed a bit as the fire damage from each bite has gone down by 1d6, but they picked up multi-attack.
So they bite twice.
In the balance, they're kicking out a good bit more bite damage.
Well, that assumes that they hit with both bites, and there's no guarantee that that's going to be.
Oh yeah. No, but everything
I think
is
we
potential.
can safely say that they could. Well, their attack bonus not having changed, they're going to do more damage, like whatever their hit frequency, right? Like unless you're going to say they had a different hit frequency in 2014, they're just they have more chances.
Yeah, they've got more chances to hit.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And then their fire breath has dropped 1d6 in damage output, presumably to compensate from that for all that. But I don't know. 2 bites is probably going to be more consistent and fun. And losing 1 die off of their first round action is probably not going to matter a ton.
No, and it's still 5d6 fire damage for their breath weapon as opposed to the 6d6 that it had before. So it's losing 1d6. Right. It's a mechanically sound change, but rolling 5d6 is about as satisfying as rolling 6d6. So
exactly.
I noticed one change in the lore that they gave them is instead of mentioning Acheron for the Hellhound and not mentioning any other lower plane, now they do kind of hit on the main lawful planes and say they're all over the place in those.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed,
No, go ahead.
The other thing that I noticed is there is a way that they phrased things in that 2014 thing is even though this is an intelligent creature, they kind of use some of that. Some dog breeds are just terrible and evil and bad, and I hate that because I had a pit bull and he was the sweetest dog that you could ever hope to have, and I'm kind of glad that language is out of there now.
Yeah, the people who run and host my Thursday gaming group have pit bulls, and they're the best. They're very rambunctious, but they're the best. I don't think I have a ton more that I need to say about these guys.
Anybody else?
Sorry.
What'd you say, Trace?
I like the art on that one. Like it's just a little different than some of the other art. It's more that's realistic.
The 2024 or 25 art looks more like a dog. whereas 2014 is imitating like the warg style K9 that we saw come out of. Was it the same time period, or was it maybe? Do I remember hunchbacked wargs from earlier editions, maybe? But it sort of has that hunch. 2014 has that hunchbacked warg sort of appearance, whereas 2024 has it looks like a big scary dog.
Yeah, I think there's also some Barghest vibe in that.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, should we move on to Helmed Horrors?
Let's do it.
sure.
This is another one where the artwork being more active in 2024, 25 does come off a lot cooler. Like having the Helmed Horrors in the middle of a fight and blocking the lightning bolt with their shield or whatever is a lot more evocative than the guy standing and posing. Not even the guy, the armor standing and posing.
Yeah. I
This
agree
is
with
also.
that. I was just going to say both versions look so much like elemental archons. The elementals what wear armor that I almost expect it to just kind of be that, but they have spell reflection or stopping or spell immunity, as is so obviously shown here. Lightning bolt, no, I'm good.
The Helmed Horrors are interesting to me because this is one of those monsters that actually originated in the realms and then they spread it out all over the place.
That's right.
Because these used to be very heavily associated with the Church of Bane. They weren't evil, but there's kind of that feeling that you took like someone famous's armor and it still had their impression in them, and that's why it was a better fighter than just animated armor. And now everyone can have them.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, Helmed Horrors are, I was going to say, they're a sort of animated armor, except they're not animated armor because that's a whole different stat block. But they are, imagine a suit of full plate armor, but instead of being completely empty and just flying around, there is sort of a reddish misty form made out of energy sort of binding it all together that is wearing the armor. And so it looks somewhere between animated armor and the elemental archons that Brandis mentioned earlier. And they have historically had these things that are like, looking at the creature and what it is, it doesn't seem automatically going to be true because basically it's animated armor but higher CR in a lot of ways. Why it has things like spell immunity.
I can tell you why it has spell immunity. That's a weird Ed Greenwood idiosyncrasy. Sure. Look at any of his monsters where he would just throw weird magic related stuff onto them.
But that's a weird thing to do. So
it is weird, and it is like such a through line of the Second Ed Forgotten Realms Monsters Compendium appendices, right? Like a lot of that monster design was sort of not really trying to have a single through line story, but instead here's the story, and then I tacked on some weird stuff just to like surprise your players and change it up.
Yep.
But there's no connection.
How about this for a surprise? When you kill the 2024 Helmed Horror, you can loot its shield, but not its sword or its armor. Because shield is listed in gear and none of the other things are.
Yep.
So in my campaign, using the 2014 version, obviously, many years ago, the PCs like saw their first couple of Helmed Horrors and were like, "That's pseudo armor. We can absolutely put it on our fighter." And she was so happy to have a huge AC bump, but it was also cursed, and she had to really make sure she took it off every so often,
Mhm.
or she would stop being a PC in this campaign.
I mean, I do like that older lore that they sort of hint at here, but they don't make it explicit, that it's not undead because it's not the old warrior's spirit, but it is something of them left in that armor because it was so intrinsic to them that it still fights like them. That is kind of an interesting story.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, echoes of past wearers, sort of the psychometry of it all is pretty fun.
And they talk about, like, that last sentence of the first paragraph. Most show no evidence of a personality, but exceptions exist. So some of them might have those echoes of their former spirit self that's animating this or whatever. I also like that they're like,
that's actually just fighters.
I also like that. Well, the name suggests sinister intentions. These creatures are basically just loyal to their creators, and they're not really horrors at all. They're just constructs that serve.
Part of it was, again, going back to their origins, because they were associated with the Church of Bane.
Right.
It's something you would find in like a Baneite temple. So whether it was evil or not, it was trying to kill you, and you're in a temple of Bane.
Right. But now they're not. And so the Helmed Horror name doesn't make a ton of sense because outside of that context, because they're not necessarily big evil things. They're just another neutral construct doing whatever their master tells it. And if you look at we have our D6 random table of commands that a Helmed Horror might be following, and it's all like carrying stuff or guarding this room or whatever. It's all pretty mundane, like, hey, just sort of stand around or carry heavy things.
Right. I think that, like, a lot of how I see them get used is something you can encounter in a sealed off dungeon, so it doesn't have biological concerns, but it still seems like a person, when you first see it. It's like encountering a person, and it fights like a person.
It's just a higher CR animated armor.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Except that it's intelligent. They go out of their way to talk about
it is intelligent.
The fact that it is intelligent.
Yeah, it's an intelligence of 10. Should we get into the stats?
Yeah, let's do that. They have picked up a staggering 7 hit points.
Watch out.
They have a huge list of immunities, some of which they lost their immunity to force. How about that?
But now they do force damage with their sword.
Now they deal force damage, right? They lost their damage resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical, non-adamantine weapons.
It's worth noting,
because of course they did.
They lost their immunity to force, but what is the most common way they're going to take force damage from PCs? It's Magic Missile, which is one of the suggested spells that they're immune to.
Yeah, for sure. Is Spiritual Weapon Force in 2024? Because that would be the other one, if it is.
I don't remember. Maybe.
Anyway.
But then they still have to hit, and they got that 20 AC. So.
Yeah, they have huge AC. So they still have magic resistance, and they still have spell immunity. They have changed up the recommended spell immunity, switching from Fireball to Magic Missile for, reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, they very much were given those spell immunities, as we're sort of saying, just to, like, be a thumb in the eye of your PC's favorite spell tactics. Right. He very much wanted just a moment.
Right. And if you're
the PC's favorite spell did nothing.
If the heroes are going into some dungeon and the bad guy knows they're coming, I would absolutely have them, like, prep all their Helmed Horrors in the dungeon to be prepared for their favorite spells if that villain has had a chance to, like, reconnoiter at all.
Yeah, for sure. And then their arcane sword no longer includes a used with two hands option, but it does deal a die of force damage, a d10 of force damage now. So net gain of a d10 of force damage.
It was just a long sword before. Now
Sure.
it's an arcane sword, and thus the force damage.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I'm just picturing a really, really cruel servant of Bane creating one of these and making one of the spells they're immune to prestidigitation so they can never get cleaned off.
Just to be a jerk.
Rude.
Yep.
I don't know what the extra force damage looks like here.
Looks like arcane.
Yes.
It's right there.
Uh-huh. Right. Like when something does extra fire damage or poison damage, like I can envision what that is. I kind of wish it had, if it did the extra force damage, I wish it also like pushed 5 feet or something when it hit. 2024 rules like to do a lot of like little things like that, and then the force part sort of thematically makes sense. But
couldn't tell you.
So a slight change. I don't know how much it really impacts. It's that blind sight part, because the 2014 outside of the 60 feet, it can't see anything. Within the 60 feet, it has blind sight, but they don't make that distinction in the 20.
Oh yeah, you're right.
24.
Yeah, they've gotten rid of blind beyond this distance on blind sight,
which is,
and
I mean, that's having them be blind beyond that distance was a little bit evocative because that made them unique, right? They have magical senses that can only sense you within those 60 feet, and beyond that, you're outside of their range, you know?
Yep.
And now they don't.
I'm not really sure what the cause for that change was, but I agree it's kind of cooler the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I wanted to point it out in case folks wanted to bring that to the 2024 version, right?
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Yeah, I mean, they're constructs. If they're supposed to guard a certain thing and they can't see you anymore, they may just go back to their original position. And that's kind of a neat thing to learn about something like a construct, where it's like, okay, when we do this, it's going to do that.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, their directives, their D6 table of directives really suggests that kind of thing without talking about their behavior once engaged.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are we good with Helm Taurus?
I think so.
All right. Then let's move on to the next thing that should not be in the H's. The Hezru, Demon of Obscenity and Outrage, which we should have already talked about in the D's, but the D's then would have been really long with all the demons, all the devils, all the dragons. We would be finishing the D's in this episode, but boy, we'd have all those things done.
That's right.
So the Hezru are like big frog demon, horned frog demon things. Is that accurate?
Yeah, like in 2014, they look a lot more like Slotty.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say too. Like, it's very hard to tell that apart from a Slod.
The 2024 art is much more kind of, oh no, this is a like toad that is just squatting and kind of waiting, like rather than it looking like a battle toad, right, from the video game.
That's a reference that only a certain generation will get.
There are also some editions where the Hezrau kind of looked like a mean version of Kermit.
And we have our
Kermit
next,
the Murder Frog here.
We have our next little D6 table. Demonic undertakings. What is the Hezru doing? What's it been compelled to do? Because it tends to work for more powerful demons and serve them. Which, I mean, they say Hezru serve more powerful demons like Nalfeshnis and Mariliths, and it's like, isn't that literally just how demons work? Don't they all serve more powerful demons? That's like the whole shtick. But and they abuse.
But Jeff, do they resent working for them?
Yeah, probably. I feel like that's part of the core to being a demon.
That's probably part of the
that
outrage.
is the thing. Like, yeah, exactly. Across a few of these last few entries we were looking at too, we have not had some of the best charts. Like, there have been some really good charts in here, but these last few have not been super great, at least as far as I'm concerned.
There's not a lot of inspiration in these charts. There's not a lot of interesting storytelling happening in a lot of these charts. I also like the powerful spellcasters often use sinister coercions like magic circle or planar binding to another magic to force Hezrus to serve them. Is like, again, that's what those spells do, and not just to Hezrus. Like, it's to all of them. Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of like, we're just going to tell you about demons in this thing and pretend that it's unique to this demon.
Well, I did personally like the Helmed Horror Directives table a lot, because the Master could be 1,000 years dead, and the Helmed Horror is still going, and that's
yeah. That is true.
If they're still carrying the Palanquin, even though you have 4 Helmed Horrors carrying a Palanquin, the Master has been dead for 500 years. Right?
Yeah,
like,
but
that's kind of great.
I wish some of that would have been in that table, though. Like, these Helmed Horrors are still carrying the Palanquin, even though the Master has been dead for 100 years or whatever. That'd been a little bit more violent.
But I got that from the first line item because, like, your version takes up too much space. Like, the brutality of like column inches is unchanged.
I get that, but there's nothing in the lore that explicitly says that they will continue following their master's orders after the master is gone. So if I'm coming into D&D new and this is my first Monster Manual, I don't know that I necessarily assume that.
I feel like our poor Hezrou are so boring that they got us talking about the previous monster again.
Yeah.
So Hezrou.
Yeah. Hezrou.
They jump, they rend, they're smelly.
Yeah. I mean, that is the problem. They have never been all that exciting.
They get 3 rend attacks.
There are
rend.
They fill the CR gap in that they're sort of that high tier 1. Well, I don't know what the 5e tiers are anymore.
They're squarely in the middle of tier 2.
Okay.
It's just so many demons don't have a combat story beyond I'm a big bruiser and I have a lot of hit points to beat you up.
Yeah.
And this is sort of in the same position as a lot of them.
But it also jumps and stinks. Other ones don't jump and stink.
What? I think here's my problem with this. Other than the fact that it has demonic restoration, which you may never find out about unless your DM wants a minion to show up again and say, "Hey, I'm the minion you killed before." There's nothing that jumps out as demonic. This could be any kind of giant toad or frog monster here. Like, there's nothing that makes this seem like it is the epitome of evil from the depths of the abyss.
That is super fair. I think it would be extremely funny to keep killing the same Hezrou over and over again in multiple encounters.
And your typical
just because, like,
your typical giant frog monster probably isn't going to have like magic resistance and do extra poison damage on a slash either,
or have resistance to cold, fire, and lightning. Right.
Right.
Have you seen a froggy moth?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're much higher CR and do all kinds of charges. I play Tomb of Annihilation.
I find it interesting that the Hezrou has a lower intelligence than the Hellhounds.
That's rough.
Yeah,
that's rough.
Yeah,
I mean, their intelligence is almost just animal intelligence. There's intelligence of 5.
Yeah, and on the stat block side, they picked up 2 points of AC, which is incredible, along with 21 hit points. Of course, they lost their damage resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, non-magical weapons, yada yada yada. let's see, demonic restoration is in the stat block where it wasn't before. The change from claw bite to rend is it's a net gain, I think.
Yeah,
15,
it's
a net gain over claw. Yeah.
It was 37 average potential over 3 attacks before, and it's 45 average over 3 attacks now.
I mean, I'm still not fond of the change. I think the claw bite is more evocative of what they're doing and whatever, but fine.
Sure.
I don't need to
I don't agree with that. They gained the leap, which makes me sad that they didn't write a special leap attack.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's just you have advantage or a bludgeoning damage kicker if this attack is at the end of a leap, because having a large frog come down on you is it would be a great iconic move.
That would be cool.
That was always one of the things I liked about bullywugs is like these bullywugs have a charge, and if they jump and they have a spear, you're just picturing this thing jumping up in the air and then coming down on you with a spear. That's a great visual.
Yep.
Yeah, so like ultimately this is fine. It just feels kind of plain.
It's fine, but could have been better.
Yeah.
They could have been more evocative.
No, it's fine, could have been better. Yep. I mean, if anything, I'm impressed they got 3 full paragraphs of lore and a D6 table in here. That's doing a lot.
Well, they had to squeeze all that general demon lore somewhere into one of these blocks, and they don't have a demon entry, so
accurate. Yeah. Like I like some of the physical description they give them, to the point that I wish it had been reflected in the stat block more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. They have fungal growths. What if they had like spores that hit somebody if they do stuff? Yeah, there's all sorts of things in there.
I mean, we can also just say these guys stink, and that's one of the best things about them.
Bum.
That is literally true.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So hill giants, they shouldn't be here either.
No.
So hill giants are in the taxonomy of giants. Hill giants are, as I recall, the weakest of the giants. Until you start adding in extra things sort of tacked on to the taxonomy.
Yeah, to use older terminology, they are the lowest of the true giants.
There you go. They are the lowest giants in the ordning. If you want to pull out the ordning.
Yes. Giants, yes.
And, in ways that none of the other giants are, their art in both 2014 and 2024 is a very unflattering caricature.
Yep.
Yeah, I was really hoping, because I have seen a few other companies doing hill giants, and they kind of make them a little bit more like they just wear rustic clothes instead of what they're doing with them here. And I kind of don't like the fact that stupid and evil has to also be ugly. It's like, I just don't. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hill giants are they're the low CR5, big, dumb, ugly giants that otherwise look like just big humans, but they're savage and in loincloths, and they hit you with tree stumps and lob things at you.
I guess to get right to what bothers me, it feels like a fat joke.
Sure.
Yeah.
2014 especially, but also 2024, the female hill giant, I feel, is particularly unflattering. But
well, and I mean, that was the only thing they could come up with in Storm King's Thunder is they're going to eat so much that they get big. And it's like, yeah. The funny thing is, to me, though, if you read the 2024 lore, it's actually much more flattering to them than the artwork would suggest. They get away from the fact that they're just lazy things that go and, eat people and have no aspirations in life, and they're just dumb, stupid things. They get away from all of that. They even kind of say that they tend to only raid when things get bad for them, and then you get to the stat block and they're chaotic evil.
Sure.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Like goblins got to be chaotic neutral.
Yeah. So the stat block has not changed a bunch. Well, boy, is it not.
Hellhounds are also smarter than them.
Yep.
Yep.
They also have animal level intelligence with an intelligence of 5.
I mean, in theory, 5th edition never establishes that there is a specific threshold for animal intelligence. But generally, most animals are at a 2 or a 3.
Yep.
So a little above animal intelligence.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they have changed Great Club to Tree Club and Rock to Trash Lob.
I kind of hate that too, but
yeah,
it's mechanically more interesting than just throwing a rock, but it is narratively
they're dirty, scummy, gross things.
Right, it's narratively leaning into and I don't like. I get like a giant carrying a bag of rocks to throw. Are hill giants carrying a bag of trash and just lobbing it at people?
Yeah, because they're dirty, disgusting things.
I mean,
that doesn't.
Or maybe they're carrying
sense.
literal kitchen sinks. Literal kitchen sinks, Jeff.
Right. But that doesn't make any narrative sense. Why are you carrying around your trash when you go raiding?
Because you might need to be able to poison something. So the Tree Club has gained a knockdown, right?
Which I like that.
Sure, yeah.
I think giants should have that more often.
And the Trash Lob poisons gives the target the poisoned condition, which okay, I know. I mean, it's called Trash Lob because they want to justify the poisoned, right. But it's a little weak.
Yeah. I almost feel like the stat block was designed by a different person than wrote the new lore for them.
That's completely possible.
No, but then there's somebody had the job of trying to make sure they coexisted.
I know they talked a lot about how they wanted to make hill giants and ogres distinct, so they're not just one is a couple of feet taller than the other. We'll get to ogres. Oh boy, we'll get to ogres, but
what calendar year would you expect that?
HIJKLMNO. That's a good question.
Man, the ogre art is it's still a big heavy dude, but it is rad as hell.
So hill giants like Hezru, so boring. We're talking about other monsters.
Yes, that's 100% a thing.
And I do wonder if both the artwork and that trash lab, to me feels like they're making a hillbilly joke.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
I do think that's also what's going on with the art. Yeah. And that's true in 2014 as well as 2024, in my opinion. It looks like sort of, they're hillbillies who can't get dental care.
Right.
And like I said, I've seen artwork now from other people where hill giants they're wearing leather. It's not even like terribly put together. It's just not super fashionable. And they just look like big people wearing leathers and carrying a sack. And I'm okay with that.
Boy,
also, I feel like I have to throw.
I finally looked up 2014, and boy, they did go out of their way to make him look as dumb as possible. He's got the slack jawed, looking.
Yep.
Anyway, what were you saying, Jared?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, this is one of those things where I remember random bits of lore and it makes me sad because there's an encounter way back in the first edition city system in Waterdeep where one of the encounters is you can help a hill giant prince that is in the city to negotiate for things when he is, come to the city and started getting drunk and you're keeping him out of trouble. So one, that encounter is not assuming you're going to kill the giant, and two, it's a hill giant prince. It's not all hill giants are stupid, dumb things. Like, we did that in first edition. Where did that go?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on hill giants?
I guess I would sort of connect some of this idea to Cyclopes that we talked about many letters ago, and how they got a sort of comparable glow up situation and a smart variant.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's it.
All right. So let's talk about hippogriffs. Now, hippogriffs are animals with their intelligence of 2, but they are oftentimes depicted as majestic creatures with the rear body of a horse and the forward body of some sort of a bird with the wings and all that. And they're oftentimes depicted as mounts.
It's sort of the third part of your cool flying mount that is some part horse and some part eagle set.
Yeah.
Right. You've got griffins, pegasi, hippogriffs. They're all really cool.
There's either a horse or an eagle involved here somewhere.
Yeah. What's not to like?
Yep. So we have our hippogriffs, and we have our D6 random table about where the hippogriff is traveling to.
I kind of like that just because it kind of reinforces that idea that they migrate like birds, and I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. And I like
the migration to a low-hanging moon is an absolutely wild idea.
Yeah,
100% into it.
That's awesome.
That is so cool.
This is doing exactly what I wished the Helmed Horror one did, is that it's not just the mundane thing, it's the mundane thing, and then combined with a fantastic thing. It's not just flying to a mountaintop, it's flying to a mountaintop with a view of a giant geoglyph.
Yeah, I love Tears of the Kingdom too.
Yeah.
But the idea of them traveling, right, and migrating, that's a dramatic departure from 2014, where they're solitary or reclusive, mate for life, and seldom venture more than a few miles from their nest.
That is a pretty big departure.
It's a big departure that does a lot to explain why you ever encounter them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and why there would be routes, right? Like in all these fantasy games of hippogriffs flying around, and you just rent some of it.
Yeah,
I see that they didn't want to give up any column inches to describe the fact that they are one of the creatures that really, really loves eating horse flesh. 2014.
It's in the. I was gonna say I remembered something, but it was in the 2014 that griffins will come after them too.
Yeah. Dragons, griffins, and wyverns have a taste for hippogriff meat and frequently prey on these creatures. Jerks.
So they're not prey as much as they used to be.
I mean, not explicitly.
Yeah, it's just not called out. I do like at CR1. These are definitely the. Do you want to give your PCs a flying mount? Okay, give them this. It's not going to let them
right.
completely own something if they get it. They have this in the fight with them.
It is interesting.
But they can apparently fly to a moon, Jared.
We lose. What did they have for the attacks before? They had beak and claws, and now they just have rins.
They actually are one of the few things that has less damage potential now than they did before.
And here's the thing. They have rins that do slashing damage. The beak does piercing damage, and I could see a scenario where when you make the rend genericized like this, the attacks into a generic rend, you can actually get those horse hooves involved in the back. I could see an argument for a hippogriff doing piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning damage, but all of the rends are slashing, so it's not having that same. The mechanics are not telling that story.
So what I do, I actually like their shift toward more hit points and less damage output, because I genuinely think that one of their main applications in the game is going to be as a mount where the PC doesn't need to do damage, but does need them to not die.
Right.
Yes. I am 100 feet up in the air. Please don't die.
100 feet? They're all the way to a low-hanging moon.
Yeah, you better worry about burning up a re-entry, bro.
Oh, goodness.
But they gained flyby. That's the other significant change.
Yeah.
And flyby is incredible. That is really good.
No, that's really cool.
It's why owls are the best familiars, right?
Because they can attack and then GTFO without being hit.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just going to be sort of, okay, we have survivability, but also damage output without nearly as much vulnerability. Great work.
Okay, so tell me this. I'm on the back of a hippogriff. It does a flyby attack. Does the opponent get opportunity attacks on me?
I'm sure that's covered in detail in 2024's mounted combat rules, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I mean, I could backdoor make a ruling that it's technically forced movement because you're not moving of your own accord.
I mean, I just want to be extremely clear that I say this only to cause psychic damage to my man Dragon Brown. What's up, Julio?
They're right next to the vehicle rules.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. But yeah, I like it. Like I said, it is kind of obvious that it's like, hey, do you want to give your PCs a flying mount? Here is something that won't completely break everything.
Okay, so there is one thing that I hate about this stat block, and that's that speak with animals can't talk to them.
Oh, because they're not animals.
Yeah,
I think because they're not beasts, they're monstrosities.
Yeah.
My solution to this is to change speak with animals, not to change the hippogriff. Just to be clear. That's a big missed opportunity.
The way Kobold Press did it in Tales of the Valiant is there are certain things that are monstrosities that have animal as a keyword, and anything that has animal as a keyword, you can use speak with animals for, even though they're a monstrosity instead of a.
There's also
so I kind of like that
there's
solution.
There's nothing in at least in the 5th edition lore in either one, that necessarily indicates to me that they wouldn't just be natural creatures in a fantasy world anyway. So why they have to be monstrosities, I don't know that I understand.
That is another thing that I kind of get a little tired of, because every time it's a hybrid of different animals in the real world, a lot of times they will twist themselves in knots to say, how could this possibly be? It had to be something that did it to them. And it's like, it's just a weird world where there's magic. Maybe it just happened. Like
the platypus is that, and we don't call that a monstrosity.
You don't
know any platypuses.
Maybe Tracy calls it a monstrosity.
Oh no! I mean, heck, if you went to the Avatar universe, that's all animals that are part this and part that.
Well, almost all. There is one bear.
Yeah, and it's very confusing to them.
Yep. All right. Anything else on hippogriffs?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm set.
So we're going to go ahead and call that the end of this episode. I want to say thank you to Jared. Jared, if people want to find you, where should they go and look?
Well, if you want to hear me talk some more, which I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can hear me on Thaco with Advantage, the D&D podcast that I do with my friend Ange. I actually wrote something on my blog this very week, and I put a part 1 on it to kind of force me to do a part 2. So you can find that at whatdoiknowjr.com, and you can also find some stuff that I've written at Gnomes too.
And also, Brandis Stoddard is with us. Where can people go if they want to get more Brandis Stoddard in their life?
Well, you can talk to me on the Tome Show Discord, or you can find me on Blue Sky at brandisstoddard.bsky.social. My personal blog is brandisstoddard.com, and my Patreon is Brandis Stoddard.
And if they want to see some of your brilliant work, they should subscribe to Dropout and watch Dimension 20.
Super true.
I also want to thank everyone who supports the show by being patrons at patreon.com/thetomeshow. Your support helps me pay the bills, and that makes the show possible. Thanks goes out to our higher tier supporters, Doug Palmer, Hyperlexic, Merrick Blackman, and Michael Harrison. For as little as $1 a month, you can help make the show awesome. Thanks to our patrons for their support.
And if you'd like to contact us, you can send email thetomeshow@gmail.com. You can also find us at many social media places. I'm Sarah Dark Magic, that's Sarah with an H, and Jeff is Squatch, SQUACH.
And that is episode 394, where we harried a herd of horrors as we discussed the Monster Manual for the 17th time. In this episode of...
The Tome.
I'm on the wall.